I have no idea, but I don't have any positive thoughts when it comes down to it. I appreciate that you played the clip of Jamie Raskin, and as you know, Congressman Raskin asked, why do you need access? I mean, here it is. I'm a wholly, fully elected member of Congress. I don't have that kind of access. So when you start talking about who should have access to literally the system that controls approximately $6 trillion of our dollars, I don't really understand, because the people that worked in those positions could only distribute money per the law. So why is it that the DOJ committee would have to have access? And that's not the place that you go to look for cuts. You look at our budget, which it is Congress that has the power of the purse. You look at our budget, you help the president come up with his proposed budget, and then the House and the Senate will decide what we send to his desk, and he gets to decide whether or not he signs it into law. He should not have access to this. And with people already having angst about Elon Musk and the things that he does as it relates to technology, this is not instilling anything more than another layer of fear, especially since normally when you are going to be in a position like that, you have to go through security clearances. And let me tell you, some people think security clearances are all about whether or not you have a warrant or not. No, they look at whether or not you have some sort of divided interest. They look at whether or not you have good credit. They look at so many other things. And we're talking about someone who's unelected, unvetted, and definitely unconfirmed, that is now literally sitting atop our $6 trillion, and we don't know what it is that he's doing, and we honestly don't know what role he has.
Look, you have well articulated some of the bad thoughts as you described them at the top here. The question is, does Musk's team now have the power to actually disrupt federal payments?
In my opinion, they do, but I honestly don't know. We still don't know really what DOJ is in the first place. I mean, listen, think about it like this, Alex. You know, everyone hates Congress. That's just what it is, right? But as a sitting member of Congress, I mean, I had to give up my ability to practice law. I am prevented from being able to practice law to prevent potentially somebody dropping a load of cash on me and I do something that is nefarious as one of 435. And now we're talking about a guy who literally gets government contracts from the United States and has not had to divest, has not had to, I mean, it is really awful. And I know right now people are asking whether or not their IRS refund checks are going to be affected. We don't know if this is more DEI. Are you going to say if it's somebody that's a person of color, then for some reason, whatever they paid in to the federal government, they're not allowed to get it back? Like, we don't know, but there is no reason for any political appointee, if you can even call him that, to have this kind of access. There's none.
Let me move to the fact that you are also a member of the Judiciary Committee, and since Donald Trump took office, multiple top FBI officials and federal prosecutors who all worked on January 6 cases, they're out of a job. And now the DOJ wants names of those who worked on the Trump or January 6 investigations for possible firing. What do you make of this apparent cleansing?
I mean, you just called it what it is. It's a cleansing. I mean, this is... Listen, when Democrats got out there and we said that our democracy was really at risk, people were like, oh, Democrats, you're out there, you're gaslighting. It's not our democracy. Well, he did say he'd be a dictator on day one. Oh, Democrats, you know, it's just Trump. He just talks. Well, let me tell you something. He is doing more than talking. We talked about Project 2025. We talked about the consolidation of power. We talked about how he wanted to be a king. We talked about in a democratic republic, that is not what it is. We have some sort of checks and balances, and he is doing everything that he can to get rid of those checks and balances. The DOJ and the people that he's going after were simply doing their jobs. The problem is that Americans thought that it was okay to take a full-fledged criminal and make him the president of the United States, and then they want to act aghast when he does criminal things. Let me tell you, we have a thug in charge of the United States, and if we don't wake up, we may not have a United States, because right now he has only been successful in being a divider in chief.
Can you tell me what you're hearing about him from Republicans, from colleagues that will speak to you off the record? Do they have concerns about him? No names, but are you hearing concerns?
I do hear concerns, and let me make sure that I get this timeline together for the American people. Number one, he was sworn in on January 20th. That was on a Monday. We were supposed to be in session from Tuesday to Friday of that week. They canceled our Friday votes, so we have only been in session Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of the week that he was sworn in. No other days. They decided to take advantage of the fact that Congress was not in and started to unravel and break as many things in our democracy as they could without us being here. But I can tell you that even when we went through the CR vote, there were Republicans that silently or in the background were cheering us on and saying this is wrong. Like, they knew we had negotiated, and all of a sudden this guy who's not elected makes a tweet on Twitter. And so, no, can I tell you that Republicans want to see Elon go down? I can. Now, will they come out publicly and say that? No, because they're concerned about whether or not he'll spend money in their next elections. But there are some. But I need them to understand that this is their time to rise up and do what is right. This is the time to honor the oath that we all took. Listen, today I had to enter into agreement with Rand Paul, something that I never saw on my bingo card. But this is a guy who made it clear. This stupid tariff war is just that. It is dumb. And I have to agree, even when it's somebody like Rand Paul, I have to agree that he is absolutely correct.
So just specifically, what is Rand Paul saying that you said, yeah, I'm backing you up on this?
On the tariffs, he said that deciding to put these tariffs on Mexico as well as Canada, I don't think we'll ever scream too loudly about tariffs on China, but that's a whole other issue. But he was saying that it is going to take the cost of things up and that we should just call it what it is. This is a tax. It is a tax on Americans. And his attitude about it was, allegedly, the Republicans don't like to do taxes. So why are we raising taxes on the American people? But that's exactly what it is. It's a tax on us. We are the ones that are going to pay.
Can I just ask you, didn't you hear Donald Trump say many times during the campaign he was going to lower prices for the American people? Won't this have the opposite effect?
Now, you know, I tried to ignore a lot of the things that he said. But yes, he did say that. He did tell that lie. And we know we've got historic prices right now on eggs. For everybody that said they voted because of the price of eggs, they have only gone up. And just saying that you're going to lower something with only offering concepts of a plan was really the giveaway that he did not have a plan to help you lower the cost of food. Instead, as we are seeing these raids that are taking place, we know that we've heard from farmers that people aren't showing up to work. And the reality is that every single city that I've campaigned in, I would ask people, tell me how many of you plan on going into farming or sending your kids into farming. So you explain to me how that food is going to make it to the grocery store if there's no one that is actually willing to go out and work the fields. And now let's talk about the foods that we get out of Mexico, whether it's our avocados, whether it's our strawberries, the things that we import. Let's talk about what that's going to look like.
And let me tell you, they're all civil service protected, George. None of them are political appointees. So what's going to happen for these folks who don't go voluntarily is they're going to file grievances and lawsuits, and they're ultimately going to win them. And the last piece I'd say is this. Understand how long it takes to get a new FBI agent on board. If you fire hundreds, if not thousands, it'd be thousands on this list of FBI agents, it takes 12 to 18 months to get them on board. By the time you go through the interviewing process, the vetting process, then they go to Quantico for their training and then become onboarded as a brand new FBI agent. In the threat assessment we have right now across the world, to lose that many agents and then take a year to a year and a half to try to replace them is incredibly dangerous for our national security. And for what? Because they did their jobs. And if the president wants to do his by pardoning people, well, I disagree with pardoning people who violently attacked police officers on Capitol Hill. It's his right under the Constitution to do it. But this is overboard, and it's not going to work.
He's a China hawk. China's been screwing. Like, why is China 10%? And the other thing you got to say here that's so wild is the current tariff structure between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico is set by an agreement that was negotiated by Donald Trump's administration the first time around. It's It's the agreement that they made.
Except that you know that this isn't really about trade, right? This is about him trying to villainize some of our greatest trade partners and allies, and especially, I think, in the case of Mexico, to sort of reframe this as a question that's really about immigration and fentanyl when it has nothing to do with that. Let me read you the statement from Claudia Scheinbaum. She writes, "We categorically reject the White House's slander of the government of Mexico, alleging alliances with criminal organizations, as well as any intention to interfere in our territory. If the United States wants to combat the criminal groups that traffic drugs and generate violence, we must work together in a comprehensive manner, but always under the principles of shared responsibility, mutual trust, collaboration, and above all, respect for sovereignty, which is non-negotiable. Coordination, yes. Subordination, no. But he only speaks the language of power. So actually coming together and having that type of relationship would seem impossible for him."
Yeah, and I think you're right about this sort of the necessary role of demonization. I mean, to Michael's point when we started off of, like, part of Donald Trump's, key sort of way of operating, as I write in the book, is like this attentional dominance, even if it's negative attention. And he understands that, like, conflict drives attention. So he's picking fights.
Trump is panicking because, guys, again, I have never seen so many people united against him. I've talked about Canada and how Canadians, not the Canadian nut job MAGA, we have our MAGAs in Canada that are being traitors right now, but most regular conservatives and basically everybody else to the left of them, from the center-right Liberal Party to the actual progressive parties in Canada, they're all supporting the tariff retaliation by Canada. You're seeing it. And now we have even American politicians saying, no, Canada's right. Trump's being a maniac here. Of course Canada's responding. I'm not saying Americans are happy about it, but like you guys have said, of course we understand why this is happening. And while this is all happening, Trump is purging law enforcement. So not only is Trump attacking allies, he's attacking you guys, like in his own country. The one thing, though, is he's panicking. These are moves that are panicking. He is already admitting now these things will cause pain. He's already trying to backstep and explain. There's one common refrain in politics. I don't always agree with it, but there is some truth. It's like when you're explaining, you're losing. And this is a trap Democrats often get in. Republicans will just say stuff. I was going to say a different S word, but they will just say S word and then just keep saying it. Is it true? Sometimes. Is it wrong? More often than not. They'll talk about cats and dogs and all of that. And Democrats and other progressive-minded people will say, well, actually, that's not true, and here's the data, and here's the explanation for why this is better than that, and this is a misguided approach. But then you've already lost. The Democrats on this one, Canadians on this one, have the win. The Trump tax is making your life more expensive, and then Trump has to be the one dancing around. This is a rare moment. Trump is realizing his mistake, and it's too late to save his sorry behind.